Our next guy up, Mr. Robert Vernon, another partner of mine in business. We do a lot of stuff with Undisputed Mastery. He's helped me co-found that. He, acts as a real operator in the business, almost like a technical officer, integration guy, all combined into one. Fantastic. We call him Rocky for a reason, because this guy has been through so many great things in his life. Wonderful successes, building business after business after business, but also hit with things personally, professionally, financially, and he just keeps going. One of the things I love about him just so much. Robert's a seasoned business and marketing expert, currently helping businesses grow and optimize their options. He's the founder of Digital World Images, and in and of itself, also Digital World Media, C2 Media, which is now called C2 Imaging. I like to say C squared. Digital Arts Imaging and Digital Arts Creative. Robert Vernon and Company, and the co-founder, as I mentioned, of UndisputedMastery.com. The companies Robert have founded and co-founded have generated over $500 million in revenue. He has a passion to help those in business and starting businesses. He and I are developing right now online curriculum. All this will be online on UndisputedMastery.com. I mean, he is just brilliant when it comes to sales and sales funnels and operating systems in business. If you want help with an operating system, this is even the guy that I go to. Fantastic websites, printing, so many things. He'll be speaking with us in Get in the Cloud, the rationale for distributing, computing, and storage. During this time, businesses are being pushed more and more to get in the cloud. And if you're not on the forefront, you're going to get ran over. It's just a fact. If your business, and for that matter, your own personal computing isn't in the cloud already, you're putting everything, guys, everything you've ever worked for at risk. Keep that in mind. We've heard horror stories where people have lost everything because they weren't backed up in the cloud and they didn't understand how to be in the cloud. If you're a business owner, or like we said, even with your own personal stuff, everything is computing these days. You've got to listen to what Robert has to say. Robert, thank you, brother. Hand it over to you, sir.
Oh, thanks so much, Keith. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So great to be with you. I'm going to share my screen here. I'll put together a little presentation. There we go. All right. Can everybody see my screen okay? Good. Okay. Well, today's talk is get in the cloud. And what is that? Well, that's really, we're talking about getting into our data and computing power into the cloud. Who am I? I'm former Chief Technology Officer of C2 Media. That company was 120 million in revenue. I managed 76 servers, 1,000 desktops, 17 locations in 2 countries. We supported 125 sales reps, 1,100 employees. I was in charge of all the laptops, cell phones, desktop, workflow, servers, 24/7 help desk, internet application development. I had a staff of 24, and that was quite a job. All right, what is the cloud? Well, it has nothing to do with these beautiful clouds. It's not a ball of cotton in the sky. And you know, the tech industry, we techies, we like to use a lot of buzzwords, right? Internet of Things, big data, 5G, 4G, you know, DNS, whatever. Terms that really don't describe what it is. And the cloud is one of those terms. It really doesn't describe what it actually is. This is what it actually is. On the left are 2 server farms, and they're basically banks of servers. Each of those boxes is a server, and each of the server contains terabytes and terabytes and petabytes of data. And on the right are small office servers we may have in our office. This little, basically 1 CPU or 2 CPU servers that take care of a small office, and that's how most of us used to operate. And there's a reason we used to operate that way, and that was really bandwidth. We didn't have the bandwidth over the internet to handle working in the cloud. Now we do. Oh, what did I do? I don't know what I did. Can you guys still see the screen? There we go. Okay, So what problems does the cloud fix? It really solves three issues: accessibility, and that really is meaning getting to our data, getting to our computers. The data really in the cloud. Some examples: Netflix. If you watch Netflix, you're streaming off the cloud. Same with the Apple TV. Any of the streaming services, basically, you're streaming from the cloud. Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and Dropbox, that's all data storage that's in the cloud. So if any of us uses that, or if we use QuickBooks Online, our data is stored on the cloud on a server farm. For computing power, the cloud really uses, some of the apps are Office 365, QuickBooks, and Zoom, which we're on right now, basically is running in the cloud. And I'd say 60 to 70% of all apps and data storage is really handled by AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. And people don't realize, but Amazon makes as much money off of their web services as they do selling things. So if you're watching Netflix, you're on Amazon Web Services. If you're on Dropbox or Box, you're on Amazon. So it's really amazing how much money they make off of data storage. So data storage in the cloud, basically, you don't have to worry about hard drive crashes. And hard drives, that's where we store our data. Hard drives crash. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They all crash. And if you've ever had a hard drive crash, you know the horror of that and the pain of getting your data back. You can, but it's really expensive. And also in the cloud, computer failures are mitigated. You don't have to worry about your CPU crashing or your power supply blowing up, burning up, or whatever. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about backing up because somebody else is backing up your data for you. If there's a power outage, you don't even have to worry about it because the data centers have redundancy, meaning if they have everything backed up on another server farm, and if they go out, your data is switched over to the other location. It's totally transparent. You don't even know about it. They also have what are called hot swappable drives, meaning if the hard drives are failing, it basically gives them warning, and they could pull out a hard drive, put in a new hard drive without turning the server off. And because of RAID levels that they're using, the data is recreated on the new drive, and you don't even know. It's totally transparent. It's an inexpensive cost of ownership. We talk about cost per gigabyte or cost per terabyte of data. It used to be data storage was extremely expensive. I remember about 30 years ago buying a half a gig drive, and I think it was $2,500. That same drive today is about $60. So we have certainly the cost of storage has come way down, and it's almost cheaper. Well, it is cheaper for us really to farm that storage out than do it ourselves. Now, computing in the cloud. So a lot of our applications we use, the actual CPU power is in the cloud. So part of the Amazon Web Services is you can lease CPU, central processing power. So if you have an application that needs 1, 2, 4, 16 cores, whatever you need, you basically lease that CPU power just when you need it. So you can scale. And that's where, let's say a Netflix or whatever, if you have 2 million people watching, guess what? It can scale because it's basically sharing that power across multiple CPUs, multiple drives, and that's how you can scale. So if you're developing applications, of course, you want them in the cloud so you can scale easier. You pay for only what you use. So you don't have to basically buy a bunch of new computers. You're just leasing that CPU power. And you don't need to buy new computers, right? You're just basically leasing more. Applications are updated for you. So if you're using cloud apps like, let's say, QuickBooks Online, that updates for you. You don't have to worry about updating the application on all your computers. You know, back when I used to manage 1,000 desktops, if we would have to upgrade applications across all 1,000 desktops, and that was a nightmare. I mean, it was just a nightmare. Again, you have redundancy as well on the CPUs. It allows for mobility and mobile and remote computing, and it's very accessible from any computer. So I said, what can go wrong, right, with our dependence on computers? Well, a lot. Look at all the stuff that can go wrong, and there's more. You can have mechanical failure, power failure, data corruption, natural disasters, terrorist attacks, a pandemic. Who would have ever guessed that, right? Computer viruses, ransomware, lack of backup, theft, and fire. And all of these, believe it or not, except for ransomware, I have been through. So back when we used to host our own servers, we would have many hard drive failures. And you're up all night just fixing the problem. It's what a pain. Power failure. Sometime I had a competitor one time. They had a backhoe came and cut their power lines, and we took care of all their production for them for about 2 weeks while that was fixed. But that happens. Data corruption. You can read them as you're reading and writing from these hard drives. There can be sector errors. The data can get corrupt. If any of you have ever pulled up a picture and it's all messed up, that was because of data corruption. It does happen. Natural disasters. You know, I lived on the East Coast for 20 years, and the hurricanes and the stuff that would come through. You know, I remember one time we were without power for 2 weeks during Superstorm Sandy. Just totally, what a mess. The terrorist attacks, 9/11. I was working in New York during the 9/11, and you know, everything was just shut down. The pandemic, all of a sudden we have to work remote, right? We all have to work remote. Computer viruses. Ransomware is where an infection happens on your computer. It renders your data useless until you pay someone. It's usually between $3,000 and $5,000 in cryptocurrency. A good friend of mine, an architect, went through that. His computers were attacked with ransomware. All of his work locked up. All of his projects he couldn't get to. He had to pay $3,000 to get it back. They were Russian hackers. He sent the cryptocurrency and they did unlock his computers. Lack of backup. How many people back up their computers regularly? Not many. Not many do. Theft. People steal computers. That happens all the time. And if they steal your computer and you have your data on that computer, it's gone. And fire. What happens if your office or building was caught on fire? Would you lose all your data? Probably, right? So here's a really compelling reason to go into the cloud. And I started my journey with the cloud in 2017, made the decision to move into the cloud. So we completely changed the way we work. And as of January 1st of this year, we were completely cloud-based. So when the pandemic hit, we were able to just switch, you know, our operation, and we didn't miss a half an hour of work. So what's allowed the cloud to happen? Why didn't we have the cloud 20, 25 years ago? Oh, it's simple, bandwidth. You guys remember the old dial-up modems and how slow those connections were? If you had a fast modem, it was 2400 baud. If you had a slow one, it was 1200 baud. Well, now we all have pretty fast connections. At my home, we have 200 megabit connection, which is really fast. You have fiber, you have a lot of really fast connections. So you can basically read and write to a cloud-based storage device almost as fast as you can on a local server. So really, we can now work really quickly, you know, over the internet. The cost per terabyte of storage has come way down. So, you know, people, they open up server farms, they lease out the space, they make a lot of money, and, you know, everybody's happy. What can go wrong? Well, here's the problem. Even with cloud-based, you gotta have power, and you need an internet connection. So if your internet connection goes down, or if you have DNS problems, or all the other things that can go wrong with the internet, you will be down as well. So it's not totally bulletproof, but it's pretty close. right? So what has the pandemic taught us? Well, we must be prepared to work remotely. Our data needs to be safe. Our processes and procedures need to be documented, communicated, and updated. Keith was talking about, I think he's developed an alternative operating system. So you have to have a system, a process and procedure in place so that you can work remotely without any problem, right? So it's very important. I wanted to talk about something else that's near and dear to my heart, and that's data. So we all talk about data, and you know, I'm sure Mitch would agree with this, but your company is only as good as its data. So if you have really bad data or out of date data, it's a problem. You know, your customer list is gold. Your database of customer transactions, gold. That marketing database, oh my gosh, it is worth so much money. I can't even tell you. You know, your current clients are gold, right? Getting a new client is really hard, but selling more stuff to your current clients, that's the way to go. Most companies have between 4 and 10 separate databases. They would have an employee database. They'll have a database, you know, of maybe an order entry system or operating system for the company, QuickBooks or whatever. They'll have production databases. They'll have multiple databases, and very, very few of these companies have these databases synced. So you'll have disparaging data across multiple platforms that are not synced up. So that's something you should really look at, is making sure your data is accurate, it's synced. There's a technology called LDAP that is a way to really sync all of your data from one master database. It will then populate down through all the other databases. So it's something that you should be aware of, that really take care of your data and don't be flip about it, but guard it. And likewise, if you have employees, you should really make sure that they can't walk out the door with your data. You know, any of us that have had salespeople work for us over the years, if you've ever had a salesperson quit and take that database, it's not good, you know. So it happens. So you have to make sure that that doesn't happen. So the bottom line is, the point I'd like to make today is you should be ready at any time to have a disaster happen. You should be completely cloud-based. You should have all your apps cloud-based. You should not be working on applications that are local to your desktop. Transition from those to cloud-based. Almost everybody now has cloud-based versions. Make sure your data is in the cloud, all of it. Don't pretend like if that computer catches on fire, you're going to be okay. If your office burns down tomorrow, you're going to be okay. So that's the way to go about it in taking care of all of your data, right? Well, that's me. And if you want to get a hold of me, robertvernon.com. I have a podcast, The Robert Vernon Show. It's on Apple and Spotify and others. And you can contact me at robert@robertvernon.com. If anybody has any questions, I'm open for them.
All right. Any questions for Robert? Robert, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting some in. Let me ask you quickly, how can somebody make sure that they're, let's just say you've got a business with multiple people, multiple hands in, let's say, client information. How can we make sure that we are being smart about how we create operating systems to make sure everybody's in the cloud? And I know we've got somebody presenting here in a little bit. Roy will be presenting more about cybersecurity.
Yeah.
But specifically from your experience, how is it that, you know, we can go about getting them in the cloud, making sure that we're pacing ourselves and our company growing in that direction? Does that question make sense?
Well, I think you're asking me basically how do we go about getting in the cloud? Is that it, Keith?
Yeah. How can we, somebody who let's say is a business owner, how can they take those steps to transition from, let's say, if they're not in the cloud, to be in the cloud, and or is there a measurement system to make sure that we know if we're in the cloud enough, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. So basically, It depends if you have an internal IT department or an external IT department. You basically need to get your IT people involved and tell them what the goal is. The goal is to be 100% cloud-based, and then come up with a plan. If you're a larger organization, it takes a while. It's not easy. If you're a small company with 5 to 25 computers, getting in the cloud is not a big deal. If you have, let's say, over 50 to 100, then you're going to have to have a really nice plan and really do it in phases. But basically, it's a matter of getting the data from local storage to the cloud, step one, and then step two would be moving your applications from localized applications to cloud-based applications.
Got it. Good. Thank you. We've got some questions here. Roy asked, what do you see as a risk in moving to the cloud?
Well, it takes time. It's not really risky, but it does take time, and it does change the way you operate. So I would say the biggest risk is really transitioning your team, teaching your people how to use it. I don't see there's any true risk in moving to the cloud.
Maybe just keeping your information secure. Would you say that?
Well, I would say almost all of the cloud-based servers are encrypted. So I don't even think that's a risk. I think you have way more of a risk keeping it on your local computer.
On your local computer, got it.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Matthew asked, recommendations on cloud-based servers. Anything you recommend? Google Drive, Dropbox, etc.
Yeah, I use Google Drive, Dropbox, and Box. So of those, I think for me, Google Drive is the easiest to use. But I think if you're going to work in a distributed environment, probably Dropbox, their professional level, is really good. It's really good.
Got it. And is that a service you can offer to a company who wants someone to walk them through? Can you or any of your employees help companies with that?
We don't really do that. I'm glad to help people with the steps they need to take, but we don't do that for people. No.
So you would, if someone has more questions, they can reach out to you about
Absolutely. That. Absolutely.
Good. Russell asked, or first Greg Weir, he asked, how much lower is the risk of ransomware with cloud-based solutions?
Oh, I would say with cloud-based solutions, the risk of ransomware is about zero.
So it's a zero risk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Really, really, really zero. Yeah. I don't think that's a risk at all.
All right. So no ransomware in the cloud is what we're saying.
Yeah. The reason is, Keith, because your data is backed up. So when you're on a server farm or you're using someone else, they have your data backed up. So if something happens to your data, they're able to restore it for you.
Gotcha. So maybe the only risk is if you don't have direct access, some kind of complications of getting it from the cloud. Would you say that, or?
Yeah, I would say that'd probably be the only issue.
Got it. Russell asked, what's the difference between Box and Dropbox?
I would say they're two separate companies, but it's really just their interface. Sometimes people find the Dropbox interface a little confusing. Box is a little bit more straightforward, but I think Dropbox is a little more powerful. And also, most applications have the Dropbox API built in. So for example, if you're using a cloud-based application, they oftentimes have, you want to save this to your Dropbox, all built into the app. So I would say Dropbox is more ubiquitous. It's more widely used.
Got it. Harley made a comment. He said, agreed, clouds have much better encryption than your standard business or personal computer.
Oh yeah, they sure do.
Yeah, Ben said, cloud best practices and security policies will prevent ransomware risk. He also says, use two-factor authentication.
Oh yeah, I'm a big proponent of two-factor authentication. It's really, you have to do it.
Good. Jeff asked, what all do you discuss on your podcast?
Well, the last podcast I had Kerry Green on. Kerry is an expert on podcasting. He produces some of the most popular podcasts in the United States. And we talk about podcasting and how to get started, what the trends are he's seeing. It was a great episode. Keith's been on 2 episodes, and a lot of times we talk about just business, and It's business related. It's all about business. And we talk about how you can optimize your business, maximize it. We talk about marketing, all kinds of things.
Nice, very nice. Yeah. And then Joey has a question. What do you recommend for interfacing cloud-based solutions so they talk and trigger each other so workflow is harmonious?
Joey, you need to hire me for that.
So that is what you do.
That's a good one there. Yeah, it really depends, Joey, what you're talking about. I know you use Salesforce, but it just depends on what you're talking about, what apps, what their APIs are, what built-in solutions they have. A lot of things that, you know, again, if they have the Dropbox API, they're made to work with certain solutions. And I tend to try to go with the ones that are built in so you don't have to force it. But you can, of course, with middleware, make almost anything talk to each other, to another application.
Yeah, great. Excellent. All right, guys. And again, if you have any questions, we've got Robert's email address here, robert@robertvernon.com. You can email me, Dr. Keith at keithmwagner.com. We'll make sure we get that over to Robert. Being cloud-based is excellent. Robert, thank you, brother. Great job as always. Always learn tons from you in this arena.